Hello, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate. And first of all, you'll notice I got the wrong site. There it is. Miriam. Okay, it is October of 2022, and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we want to say, kudos to all those that are fighting the good fight. And, you've got our prayers with you. With us today, familiar face, Atif Zafar, who has co-hosted with me before, and we call him our chronic entrepreneur in health and technology and innovation. And so we appreciate you being here, Atif. I'll have you introduce yourself properly here in a minute. And our guest of honor, Rafael Perez. And Rafael, he represents Invest Puerto Rico in business development, economic development, and all those things that we wish and pray for every day in a lot of places in the world. And so we appreciate you being with us today, Rafael. So we're going to get to know you in a minute as well. Everybody knows the reason why we do this is to connect people forward, to expand impact. So we look forward to seeing where we can go with you on that, Rafael, today. First up, Atif, I'm going to let you have the floor for just a minute to do a little intro for everybody out there.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mary. Pleasure to be here. I'm Atif Zafar. I am a medical doctor by training, and I'm still practicing medicine. However, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Basically have multiple different companies innovating in areas of medical devices, high technology, social media, public privacy, consumer privacy issues. And now we're actually creating a fund that will hopefully fund some of these types of ventures. So pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. You always bring such a spark of interest to our conversations, Atif. So I'm looking forward to see what questions you might ask today. And we'll definitely include all the links to all the entities you want to share with us and a little bit of bio information on you when we post this. So Rafael Perez, we were introduced to you by a fellow business developer, Carrie Nicotin, out of California, who suggested us to get to know you. And all about Invest Puerto Rico. She was claiming it to be one of the best spots to put your investment and your innovation that she's come across in a while. So totally got our attention. We trust her when she tells us you need to talk to Rafael. So here we are, Rafael. So tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you into the type of work that you're doing and how long you've been doing it.
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Mary. Nice to meet you again, Atif, and Frontrunners for hosting me here. Very exciting times for Puerto Rico. I'll give you a little bit about my background. I'm Rafael Perez. I'm the Business Development Director here for the East Coast. I'm based out of New York. Yes, I get to enjoy the time sometimes in Puerto Rico. I get to visit my rest of my co-workers there, my team, and my family as well. Originally from Puerto Rico myself, but mostly grew up in the New York mainland here. My background is in economic development, foreign direct investment. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, prior to joining Puerto Rico, and this is where my passion comes in. I used to work for the government of Canada and attracting investment there, creating jobs, capital, and did that for a number of years. And when Invest Puerto Rico was created in 2017 by law to promote investment for the island, I raised my hand and I wanted to do it. I wanted to be the one to take on that new challenge and promote, wave the Puerto Rico flag, like I always say, here in the East Coast. So our mission is pretty straightforward. It's as a nonprofit economic development organization, is to be the one-stop shop for new businesses that come into the island. And there's a number of ways that we've done it. We are funded through the government of Puerto Rico. We're in our economic development secretary sits on our board as well for the island, and we spend a lot of time with him and his and our partners, the Department of Commerce and our governor, to really strategize how we're going to be targeting our sectors from biopharma to tech, medical device, manufacturing alone, and energy, which is an important sector for us as well. And so we are a team of 25 or so. So I'll probably call us we're a startup, I would say. We also have a presence in the West Coast, and the rest of our team sits in Ireland. Now, as a resource to companies around the globe, we are focused on helping companies be a landing pad for them, and making it as smoothly as possible, navigating the ecosystem on the island, and facilitating many introductions, helping with finding real estate space, recruiting local talent there, understanding the labor markets, the economics of the island, meeting with some of our public-private partners, industry partners that are in the same space, looking for, I mentioned recruitment, but also looking for understanding some of the process, the courses of action to create an entity, the benefits and incentives that are available for companies looking to create jobs on the island. So there's a variety of ways of doing that, and we have local partners that help us with making it a smooth landing for companies to come into the island. I run an advisory council here as well of business entrepreneurs, from venture capital to family offices and law firms that are part of my advisory group. And I call them more of ambassadors. The East Coast is a big territory to cover, as you can imagine, but they are entrepreneurs that also have Puerto Rican ties as well, with families that are looking also to build and help us with the lead generation for the island. That's just a general what I do. Spend a lot of times in conferences, prospecting, reaching out, putting together virtual events, but also local events here in New York. And I'll mention it here. I do have, for anyone that is tuning in, on October 27th, I do have a session around opportunities in Puerto Rico, business opportunities, where we have a panel of experts on the tax as well. And we'll have a company that will talk about their why they're in Puerto Rico and why they've expand there. And that's October 27th. If you're interested, please reach out, and I'll share that information with Mary. I'll stop there.
Okay, that's good. We'll make sure if there's a link or there's some kind of contact or place on your website that, you know, shares that information, we'll make sure we'll include that. I'm going to let it loose on Atif in a minute, but I want to ask this one question because you mentioned the economics of the island. Can you give us just a hint or a little bit of information that would give us that overview? Just a little
Absolutely.
bit.
Yeah, and Puerto Rico, it's for those that most don't know, it's a U.S. territory, right? So it's you're protected by, you know, through a U.S. jurisdiction. There's U.S. currency. We're a population of 3.2 million people. We're also, you know, not many people know this, but our GDP represents almost 50% of around manufacturing, tourism being around 9%. Knowledge services which includes IT services as well for exporting services from the island and across the globe. That's pretty large as well, upwards of 50-20% as well as part of our GDP. So manufacturing is an important industry for us. And when I say manufacturing, that represents mainly pharma, aerospace, medical device as well. So just general economics there, you know, over the last decade, we've had a brain drain as well. So, but there's pros and cons to that. I mean, we're producing top talent. Over 60% of our graduates have a STEM degree. And that's pretty remarkable for an island of such a population. We have over 80 universities. We have our own MIT on the western part of the island. I mean, we have many companies that are recruiting, you know, like NASA, Google's are really interested in recruiting scientists, engineers, and they've lived and they happen to move to the mainland, to places like Florida, Texas, and we're making a big initiative to actually reverse that brain drain, right? Because it's important for us as an organization and as an island as well. And so we consider ourselves very competitive when it comes to talent, costs being very competitive when it comes to from a tax perspective and salary perspective. You know, we are a U.S. territory where companies are also treated as foreign entities, and they don't have to pay federal taxes. So there's only a local tax rate of 4% that is paid. So that's the general economics of what is happening on the island. I mean, from a infrastructure perspective, as you heard from the recent natural disasters, there's been, you know, lots of improvements. There's this stimulus of money coming in through FEMA, through the federal administration, prior to the one that we have now, to rebuild our infrastructure from roads to our airports. We have 3 international airports. One of the main ones being in San Juan, which has direct flights mainly from the East Coast here, and soon, hopefully, from California, for those that are in California. We also have 11 seaports, 11 seaports, 3 international airports, and so it's just to give you a general idea. I mean, it's easy. It's a gateway to the U.S. because we also enter Latin America as well. So that's one of the biggest interests that we see coming from companies that are looking from Latin America from a cultural perspective as well, being bilingual. So that's from a logistics side, that's been really interesting, more so now during this pandemic. There's this Build Back Better initiative. If it's made in Puerto Rico, it's made in the USA. And now working with the administration, we've seen lots of interest from companies that are looking into EV, from lithium battery manufacturing to medical device manufacturing. We're good about on scaling in manufacturing, and if you could do it on the island and export, I mean, that's just jobs, huge impact for us. So there's a lot of conversation around how do we, even about manufacturing for chips. As you know, there's a big supply chain shortage, and because now there is interest to ship a lot of the supply chain from Asia to the U.S. mainland, Puerto Rico is now definitely more so on the radar. There's still conversations about becoming a statehood, but we are still a U.S. territory, so we are still treated under the same U.S. laws, same jurisdiction. IP protections still is the same. For anyone that is also, looking to relocate from abroad, there we still same applies for U.S. citizens, right? For anyone that is looking to relocate from with a green card or that kind of stuff, you still have to go. You still need to use you use a U.S. passport, basically. So which is another benefit for companies that are looking on the mainland and looking to expand their footprint to a place like Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm. Was it you who told me that you have a presence there for what is it? There's an office there that would normally, right on site there, that would not be normally there, that would kind of make it easier for innovation. I can't remember now what it was, but
yes. So we do have a huge presence of the FDA already.
There you go. That's what I was trying to come up with.
Yeah. So we, I mentioned life sciences being a big sector for us. We used to be a lot bigger, larger back in the 936 tax bill was removed. We saw a lot of companies relocate to places like Ireland, but now that shift is going to happen again. I'm pretty optimistic because of the with this Made in America, Made in USA initiative. So we that's important for us to have a group like this, because we do have we have active ingredients. We produce generics, solid dosage. We have all the big 12 out of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies have their Caribbean headquarters, from Pfizer to Lilly to Johnson & Johnson, Amgen. And then you look at the medical device sector, Medtronic alone has about 4 facilities, close to 5,000 employees. The fun fact I always like to tell people is that we produce over 95% of the world's pacemakers. We export them out of Puerto Rico.
Pacemakers, is that what you said? Yeah.
That's correct. See, Medtronic and Baxter, I mean, they're a huge exporter of medical device surgical equipment on the island. So that's and they're there because it's because of their talent that they have there, and their resilient talent, I would say, too. And when you look at what's happened in the last few years, but also during these natural disasters, I like to mention, I mean, these big companies have to remain operational 24/7, 365 days. They managed to be back up and running 2-3 days later during this disaster. And I'll tell you why that's happening, because the private sector has really invested into coal generation, having their own microgrid, building in those solar panels to remain operational through any future hurricanes, which normally really, that last Maria happened, probably only happens every 50 years, right? But we cannot withstand another Category 1 storm like we just had, where our system is a little fragile, and there's still a lot of investment going into rebuilding our power grid. And most of might have read the news, as Biden was just there last Tuesday in the southern part of the island to just kind of assess, evaluate what needs to be done and distribute to really build and avoid another disaster like this, and in places like Florida as well, right? Yes. So that's a huge impact, because now it impacts our companies, but also impacts our people, our communities, especially in rural areas. So I have to say, the private sector has stepped it up on the island, and not just the public sector, but for them, it's great to see that there's still everybody operational and 100% back to business. So that's just a comment. But pharma, medical device, aerospace, I would say on the western part of the island, Lufthansa has a huge presence there, maintenance repair, MRO facility there. Lockheed Martin, Pratt & Whitney are also there because of the talent pool. We're very fortunate to have a big like that on the island. So, and we represent 7 out of the top 10 medical device companies that have headquarters in the Caribbean, in Puerto Rico.
Wow. That's a lot for what we consider maybe a little place. Yeah. Atif, what do you think?
Well, sounds like I need to visit Puerto Rico immediately. I've got a lot of...
Now's a good time to go.
Yeah. So, just a couple questions. One is, what kind of investments are needed right now in Puerto Rico that we could hopefully help bring to the island? I mean, are there specific sectors that need investment money?
Yeah, so we are, and one thing that I didn't mention, as an organization that we do, which is quite different than any other economic development organization out there, is that we also have created this investor platform called Impeller. Now, think about it as sort of like a Match.com, where we have metrics that are creating jobs, but also creating capex. And how do we do that, right? How do we bring capex investment to the island? We created this platform, which is white labeled. We don't take any equity. It might say Invest Puerto Rico, but we're not an investor, right? We're a nonprofit. So this is just a platform where we showcase projects, from opportunity zone projects to tech companies that are looking to expand their footprint on the island, and those that are looking to raise capital. And this platform was just launched about a year ago. And we're proud to say that we have over 800 investors and accredited investors signed up to look at some of our 30+ projects that we have, and we continue to add to this pipeline. So think about it as a platform where we have tiles by verticals, and they're all looking to raise a certain amount of money, from $500,000 to $50 million or more. And that's one way that we're asking, if the audience out there is interested, we've seen many interest from here in the mainland. Those 800+, close to 1,000, have created a profile, from angels to VCs to private equity firms that are interested in investing in some of these, and diversifying their portfolio, of course, in a place like Puerto Rico. That's one way that we would ask, for to look at. And this is there's a demo if you want to understand a little bit more about the platform, on our website. It's Impeller, IMPELLER.com, but it's also on our website at www.investpr.org. Excuse me. So that was one way. When you asked about sectors, priority sectors for us are biosciences, pharma, obviously manufacturing, around advanced manufacturing, anything around IoT, Industry 4.0, agriculture, and energy. I mean, we have projects that are coming to us where we're looking at now at waste to X. And we have a waste management issue on the island where we're trying to find the next startup that might be able to find solutions. Right. So we want to bring companies that are a good fit for the island, that also are alternatives and are sustainable, and they're key for the success of the island as well. When you look at disruptors, example is we only have three big banks on the island. We could use more digital banks for those underserved, for the underbanked on the island. So
Right.
one of the areas that we're concentrating as well, we're looking at not just we have credit unions, but also looking at more digital banks or companies that focus on payments, to really now that there's a growing population of financial savvy as well, that you can work out of your phone. Solutions like that, right? Things like point of sale, and then we also look at pharma from we've had companies now that are looking to produce PCR tests. I mean, they might be the wave, for example, and we want to be a solution to that, a gateway for the U.S. as an alternative, versus the Research Triangle or Boston or these other areas where we have a cluster and that infrastructure in place. Other investments that we like to see is also on our real estate. We could use more assets. We have facilities that are turnkey ready, not as many as we hoped to, but we are considered an opportunity zone. Almost 100% of the island is an opportunity zone. We're a free trade zone designation as well. So there's an opportunity there to invest and look for any developers that are interested in or have manufacturing clients that are looking to acquire existing facilities, or we could help and source that. We also have contract manufacturers on the island that might be might source. So that's the number of things that we're looking at to grow our sectors.
Well, it sounds like I've got multiple connections that could be of use to you. Certainly, in the energy area, I've got a couple of connections there. In the real estate area, certainly got a couple of connections there. There's a gentleman I should introduce you to. His name is Manuel Benitez. He's from Puerto Rico. He's based in Puerto Rico. They have a company called Anian Mines that does basically harvesting cannabis right now for medicinal purposes. But he's got connections to a lot of other very high-powered individuals, wealthy private equity people that could bring substantial investments, your way. So in those sectors that you mentioned. So I think one of the things post-call, I'm going to introduce you to him. And then certainly, one of the things I'd like to do is
I think you're muted.
Sorry. One of the other people I want to introduce you to is a gentleman that I have been working with. His name is Dan Nilsson. He's got also connections to microfabs, and you talked about the CHIPS Act and getting some funding for that. We're in the process of actually configuring and building what we call microfabs. These are sort of kind of lead-ins to the bigger fabs. So when you have small companies that need to innovate and they can't get access to semiconductors, for example, microcontrollers or other devices like power supplies, especially medical device companies that need these components to be able to ship products, and they don't have access to those. The concept of a microfab would be that they would be able to prototype in small quantities these types of chips very inexpensively before going to the major fabs for mass production. So for $20,000, $30,000, they could do a shuttle run that would provide them with a few samples that they could test, and then from there they could, once they have working silicon, then they can take that idea and go to the bigger, venture capitalists. So for small companies, this would be a great idea. So I think that's something where we can help you.
Good. Yeah, we just right now in the conversations with the administration, with the government of Puerto Rico about our next strategy around attracting chip manufacturers. We have a huge, we have a population of 3.2 million people, but we also understand that there's a big talent shortage, and we're trying to bring, our sweet spot when we're looking at targets. It's the mid-market companies. I would say the big multinational companies all understand the business climate on the island, and when we're looking at hiring, it's going to be and I think there's a big shortage everywhere, right? We can't supply thousands of jobs and compete there, but those mid-market companies are looking for 50 people, up to 100 people scaling. That's our sweet spot right now, from what I'm noticing. And then one thing that I would mention here is that since COVID too, is that outside of manufacturing too, that I'll kill myself if I don't mention this, is that this whole work remotely has really triggered a lot of interest on the island. And we've seen, you mentioned about sectors that we've seen come to us and that we're targeting. We're not so proactive there, but we're reactive, is that we've seen back office operations as well, with people wanting to work remotely or even have a hybrid. So we have a few announcements coming up that I'm really proud to mention soon. And one that we just landed recently was Amazon Web Services. Now they're using they have their Caribbean headquarters in Puerto Rico, and they've started with a DevOps team working remotely, and now slowly looking to scale. Actually, for space, because they need somewhere to meet, of course, in person at least. But what's happening now is that now you could plug and play from anywhere, and we've attracted so many digital nomads to places like Old San Juan. In fact, there's an article already out today about that, because it was just the ease of traveling, and our tourism. Really, our travel industry didn't really get impacted. In fact, for early pandemic, but last year we had a very successful year. We hit the number of tourist visitors on the island, and we already more than, I think, double the amount of visitors on the island this year. We haven't even finished the year yet. So there's a lot of interest, and this mainly is a lot of executives. Is really the real estate. You mentioned, Mary asked me about the economics. The real estate market has skyrocketed as well on the island. It's really hard to find a place in San Juan these days, but we have an ecosystem of co-working spaces now, and that we have waiting list, and it's amazing to see. Puerto Rico is not what it used to be 5 years from now when Hurricane Maria hit. We have so many entrepreneurs. We got accelerators. So for anyone in the audience that is interested in learning more about that, we have several accelerators, incubators on the island. One in particular is Parallel 18. Several digital health companies have graduated from that. What's interesting about that organization is that the accelerator is that when the early pandemic, it was they had a cohort of all virtual Puerto Rico startups. But prior to that, and now that we're sort of opening up for travel, most of those majority of those startups there were coming from Latin America, and I would say maybe one or two are from Puerto Rico, and the rest are from Latin America and the U.S. So there's an interest and most of these companies are in the digital health space, food tech, mostly SaaS companies, I would say. So there's these companies that are spinning out of there. Grupo Guayacán, and then we have a number of FinTech. We have a blockchain trade association already on the island, and I think every crypto person lives on the island as well.
Yeah. Actually, Manuel has a big play in crypto, so I think he'd have a very interesting some technology for you to consider. So
absolutely. So we're practicing that, and we now, that brings me to why if you see my background here for the audience, we are focusing on attracting game changers, right? And that's important for us because we're thinking about the next 50 years. How do we help our talent, recent grads, help work for cool companies, help work for disruptors. We don't want to be the traditional manufacturing hub for that forever, but we do want to attract companies that are innovative. For us, manufacturing is great. Research and development is another added bonus for companies that are looking to develop their R&D on the island. I think that's attractive, something to explore, because we do have some benefit programs for R&D. So it's for those that are watching. I mean, if you're doing your research, think about your development on the island, but also think about your research on the island as well.
Right. And you had mentioned the tax incentive, that there's no sort of there's only a state tax. Is that correct? There's no federal tax.
That's correct. So we
Okay.
only there's only a local flat tax rate of 4%. There
Okay.
is certain guidelines you have to follow, obviously, and this is under our incentive code, which is called Act 60. And there's obviously other chapters for individual investors who might be looking to relocate to the island. And there's certain protocols that you have to become a bona fide resident and certain investment you need to do and become a resident on the island. But for exporting services for businesses, there's the benefit of 4%. And I believe that's already a icing on the cake, especially for companies that are, dealing with the huge taxes that you pay here in places like New York or California, where it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
hard to do business, right? And especially for
Right.
startups that are bootstrapped and having difficulty raising capital, and they're burning cash pretty fast. So I think it's a hub where, it's an island where you could, you don't have to necessarily relocate your entire staff, but you could something to think about from a profitable perspective and future expansion. So so those are one of the benefits that about our incentive code. Also for capital gain reasons, 100% tax exemption, which is offered to based on based on the business that you bring to the island or the investor. There's opportunities to tap into cash grants for job creation and also tax credits, but also cash grants for machine and equipment as well that we could offer up to 50%. So I mentioned at the beginning, we're the one-stop shop for businesses, and we're looking at companies that are looking to bring hundreds of jobs to the island. We have the ability to position other benefits or incentives on the table for companies that are really interested in expanding or relocating their business to the island. And we have the network to get legal advice, tax advice on how that works and how to structure, which typically what we've seen is if you look at the equivalent of a Delaware the Delaware Corp would be something of a LLC, which is the same in Puerto Rico, which is how companies are setting up now.
Understood.
Wow, this is really comprehensive. I was going through like Atif, my mind starts circulating, writing down names of people that I think need to talk to you, because the more you talk, Rafael, the more opportunities start kind of unfolding, that we can see clearer how maybe it doesn't fit here, but it fits over here. So trying to kind of figure out how all that works. So this is actually, while it's a nonprofit organization, and you've got all these bells and whistles that will help people get situated, is there also an actual hub where all these like pharma places, medical device places are actually situated, where that be sort of an industrial park with the amenities that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I would say, I wish I could pull up a map here, but there's a big portion of our population is in San Juan, and that's almost like 2.5 million people, right? That's a big San Juan metro. And then you got a city like Ponce, Mayagüez, which is the big university, Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, which is where it's located. But I would say most of the pharmas are scattered around the island.
Okay.
In the San Juan metro, of course. But now we have one company that has its own GMP incubator now for biotech businesses, particularly focused on gene cell and therapy, which is an area where we're putting a lot of efforts in, because that's the next wave of innovation. And this company called OCN Bio, the president actually used to work for 30 years at Amgen and decided to, from California, Puerto Rican himself, decided to put an operation in the western part of the island for a number of reasons. Obviously, it's not a San Juan metro, but you actually have access to the universities there in the western part of the island, which is kind of like the same concept as how Cambridge and Boston area is building around this bioclusters around MIT and others in their universities there. So he's doing that, but also to attract biotech companies and be a landing pad. Next generation of gene cell therapy research, right? So that's one area that we're focusing heavily on. And then we have on the San Juan area, we have our partners from the Puerto Rico Research Science Trust, where they have these incubators around forward thinking, be more of a shared space for biotechs. The Molecular Research Science Center for research and investigators to do research the rest. But when you look at the pharma and medical device, they're pretty scattered around the island.
Okay.
Medical and the Medtronics has a huge presence in the southern east part of the island as well. But when you look at the tech businesses, I would say professional services business, also in the San Juan Metro. But our talent, I mean, they're very loyal. Our workforce, they drive towards the city. I mean, and I think that's a norm, or at least that's the culture there.
Yeah.
But it's easy to get around the island pretty fast and pretty. When you talk about the infrastructure there, and it's not like we don't have a subway system, right? Or
it's not New York or DC, right?
New York.
You're not going to
Exactly.
get stuck for 2 hours on the freeway.
Exactly, and it's easy to drive around the island. So that's where most of the concentration in the financial district again is in San Juan Metro. But we're now, our job is we're talking to companies that we're not only looking at one section, one municipality, right? We look at the entire island.
Sure.
And give you a general idea of where is your best location and where you're going to succeed. So when we're talking to companies that are looking for real estate space, we give them options, whether it is in the East Coast, western part of the island. It's something that we are very heavily involved with, and we have over 70 mayors, right, on the island. So administration. So there's a lot of dialogue that needs to happen with these municipalities and understand their ecosystem. And we obviously host tours of companies that want to go down there and see for themselves these spaces. And then we do that at no cost.
Fantastic. I have a couple of quick questions for you. If somebody had an interest in partnering with a company that's already located in San Juan, and because you just mentioned something that made me go bing, I already know somebody I think probably be interested. How does that work? Could they come through you and you could help them facilitate or broker that sort of partnership a little bit just to get them into the right spot, and they would get whatever benefits through you that could happen through that collaboration? Absolutely.
And we often get inquiries where companies are looking to partner or even source a manufacturing, a CMO or a contract manufacturing organization on the island, depending on their need. It's a relationship island. I'm stealing those words from our chief business development officer, but it is. But everybody knows each other. We have MOUs with some of the big associations. We are often very involved with some of the industry associations like Primex, which is which is the main manufacturing industry association for the island. So depending on the type of product, the type of partner they're looking for, we're able to look through our network. We are about to launch a platform on our website called Get Proven for service providers on the island or off island that might be interested in looking for partners. And it's kind of like the Yelp concept, Yellow Pages. And it's a great resource, right? Where companies could sort of pick and choose, I'd like to meet these people, and maybe perhaps we have connections. But yes, to answer your question, we do get involved in that and happy to make those introductions.
Okay. And I have a stupid question, although they say there are no stupid questions, but just for a frame of reference for most people who maybe have never even been to Puerto Rico, is how long a flight is it from New York, say, or Atlanta to get there? Because if somebody's looking to partner or even looking to go and check it out, I think they get a frame of reference of, if I'm going to have to run back and forth for, for a year or 6 months until I get this worked out, what am I looking at?
Yeah, I mean, from New York, New Jersey area, or Philly, we're looking at around 3.5 hours.
Okay.
From Miami,
Perspective is everything.
Exactly. So and there's plenty of direct flights from there, I would say. Miami, plenty. And we don't have direct flights from California. Typically, you would probably have to in Texas.
Okay.
So from Texas, about close to a little bit of 3.5 hours around there. So I believe. So there's easy way to get there.
That's reasonable. That's not too
to get
bad.
around, and to get around the island is fairly easy. I mean, we have Ubers and
Mhm.
everywhere. But JetBlue has direct flights there.
Okay.
I know now we have launched they've launched direct flights from Brazil to Puerto Rico as well, as of a year ago through Azul, I believe it's called the airline. But we do have plenty of direct flights from the East Coast, primarily in New York tri-state area.
Okay. Very good. Well, I think we've gotten as much information as we can get out. You are absolutely an encyclopedia of information about Puerto Rico. So we appreciate that. Is the last question I always ask is there any particular type of person or companies that you would like to meet to help you move forward with what you're doing? I mean, we kind of know what you're looking for in terms of who would come there. From the perspective of the business work that you do, what types of people would help you to do what you're doing?
Great question. And my target, I mean, for me, and my message is for companies, for CEOs are looking to expand to Puerto Rico, it has to make business sense for them. It has to be a market opportunity. I'm always, I always tell, think big. I mean, if you're Puerto Rico is not a huge market, but you have to think about places like Latin America, where we see opportunities. You see it as a bridge. Right. There's companies that are looking at manufacturing, and we're great at doing that kind of stuff. Companies that are looking to tap into bilingual skills or talent, but also know that and looking to diverse their workforce. There's also another opportunity there in Puerto Rico. And also for companies that are looking to scale their business, because from when there's a cost benefit too, right? There's we have attractive incentives, but also inflation hasn't really helped us all. But you're also thinking about supply chain efforts. You're looking to rethink those type of strategies at the board level. Put us on your radar. We have opportunities there. We are our infrastructure is being continues to be rebuilt. We are 5G zone. We have Starlink above our island now, right?
Oh yeah,
so that we have probably the most fastest internet on the island at this point.
Just move that into Africa. That would be awesome.
So I think and for companies that are going back to Internet of Things that are going to be helpful to provide solutions for rural areas to help impact the digital health community as well. We're looking for that kind of stuff. So I think I call it thinking about it as a sandbox, where if you're looking to build and reshape and be part of the digital transformation on the island, I think this is a great place to do it.
I think probably the most valuable thing, and I'm going to pull a nugget out of just what you said earlier, is that you're a landing pad basically for a lot of things that you can do in the island. But when you think broader, like you said, that sort of gateway not only to the United States, because you are part of the US, but also to Latin America. And so you could, by situating there, then you have easier access and pathways to doing business beyond, Puerto Rico. So it gets really interesting when you start looking at it from a broader perspective there. So I'm going to leave that comment and go back to Atif for final words, wisdom or advice or questions.
I mean, I was supposed to ask questions, but you know what? You've educated me on a lot of things the other way around. So I really appreciate all the time, and you've opened my eyes to what's possible. Indeed, I think we need to have further conversations, because I think, we have a lot of things we can bring to the island from what I'm doing, and a lot of connections I can make. So I think this has been a very rewarding conversation, and I think there'll be opportunities opening up here very shortly that I'd love to participate in. So
thank you, Atif. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you all for hosting me here. and look forward to seeing you all in Puerto Rico soon.
Excellent. Thank
Is
you
that
very
an
much.
invitation? Because I think it
Yes.
sounded like an invitation. There we go. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye. You guys stay here. Say goodbye to everybody else. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com where you will get this interview, but also some links and different information that is going to be provided to us by Rafael and also by Atif. So goodbye, everybody. Happy front running.
Cheers.